What's up, guys? Today is the 5th of August, 2017. This is more just for, disclaimer, of a therapeutic venting vlog. As such, I will always rant off about some sort of educational mumbo jumbo, so at least that's the consultations or condolence prize or whatever to dealing with this. So, let's just start first off the top of my head. Fascinating things I've been discovering about the ethers in recent times. I'm starting to understand why some of the quote-unquote, so there's the people that are just randomly dead intelligent life that were either, regardless of who you ask, and I've actually been trying to read some of my ether manuscripts and been having issues with that. I guess I'm going to have to read those actually myself instead of playing them on a PDF. I like to play things when I'm sleeping in particular because I actually digest it better. In fact, there are those tapes where, if you're learning like a new language, where they actually do say that possibly playing them while you're sleeping helps you learn the language better. That is true, at least when you're memorizing definitions and such. So, me having a very high active cognition, having Mercury conjunct Pluto opposition with Jupiter, it actually helps when I'm kind of distracted to absorb things more or less. So, anyway, the ethers originally told me when I was trying to conduct an exorcism during the Lithia time, which was in June, that the actual remedy or the method that I should be using in order to actually get rid of the shadow people or nasty ethers is to regularly smudge clean the house. And I didn't get that, and I don't like that, because I like to have solutions to things and move on. I've in recent times have kind of concluded why they're coming to me with that kind of advice. It has a lot to do with tradition and religious tradition, which is coincidentally being stripped from society as a whole. I've never been someone that has been an advocate for religious practice, especially the actual mundane, more or less like the actual going to church things. And so for me to actually come to these conclusions, figure these things out, and be able to convey these to you of why people would go to church every Sunday, why the aesthetics are the way they are, why at least the orthodox religions, the ones that are closer to what they originally were, or at least where they originally derived from, which would be a lot of the ancient texts that I reference, explains why those things are the way they are, and kind of reiterates or validates what the ethers were insinuating. So, as of right now, I'm having technical difficulties. Finally, my laptop's working. I seem to notice that when... So I haven't been able to pick up, per se, on there being paranormal phenomenon throughout my life because I've been immersed in it since I was young. AKA, I have sensory adaptation to it, so all the shit that happens to me, like electronics malfunctioning, people going psychotic in my face, me going psychotic on other people, etc., the reason why that's been a lifelong perpetuated cycle for me, because that is some of the symptoms you get from having spirit attachment. Me being born and brought up in Virginia City, Nevada, and there being evident spirit and poltergeist phenomenon in the house I was in, and me even laughing, talking to it, and being interactive with it would mean that I'm very well immersed and have had full-blown sensory adaptation phenomenon to said spirit attachments. So that explains all those things that I've been dying to know throughout my entire life, why the fuck those things continue to happen to me. So speeding forward, just giving examples now so I don't meander too much about this and lose myself in my point. I use the Ghost app that I have, and as I'm starting to find out, just thinking about, I think back to a lot of horror movies, and I think it's funny that I've also been kind of apprehensive or scared throughout my life about Poltergeist, the movie, and everybody would go, well, that's a movie. But interestingly enough, talking to a colleague in the astrological community who happens to be an astrologer as well as a Plutonian himself, and on top of that, he actually writes screenplays. He's mentioned to me when I've told him about the crazy stuff that I'm experiencing, going through whatever transcendent bullshit or growth or whatever. It's supposed to be my Saturn return, but this is obviously way abnormal for a normal Saturn return, but that's usually how it works with me because I have Uranus on the descendant. But he says that a lot of occultists and a lot of people he knows that come up with crazy stuff, or like, they're like, I just want to tell people my story, or tell people what happened, or whatever, or find a way to, release it, but if I tell people about it, they're going to think I'm crazy. And he would, agree with them and say, yeah, they're going to think you're totally freaking nuts. So me being me, I don't care about that sort of thing. But he did admit that he told me that I should just take my life experiences and bottle them up, pretend like they're not happening on a sociological level. Don't let anybody know what I'm actually going through, which is actually, in my personal opinion, just as traumatizing and self-destructive as burying your Pluto shit, like Joel Mayberry says. And I'm not trying to dog his methods, but I understand that some people give a fuck about what other people think. And unfortunately, I don't. So, he says just like other people that he knows in the community or in the occult arts, they actually make screenplays or write novels as fictionary narratives. And
fiction with quotation marks.
Right. So think of it this way. If somebody who was going through, since I was born in 1987, and I was immersed in this kind of activity as it was transpiring. So think about it. That means that's why anybody in the 80s, there's a significant, intense theme of paranormal, encounters and experiences, right? So that means whoever the fuck made the goddamn Poltergeist movie or came up with the story for it knew very well exactly what they were fucking doing and knew that it was off of personalized experiences. Hence why the fucking main character died. She died from pneumonia. Isn't that hilarious? Which is what everybody has actually developed in this house besides me. Me being the chronic asthmatic, the one that's had smoke inhalation so bad from fires, which we currently have the worst ever. Actually almost had a collapsed lung and had to have steroid injections put in me. I'm the only one without health insurance. I'm the only one that doesn't actually go to see a doctor, and I actually treat myself if and when I can with whatever I can create myself. And all I have is my inhaler, which I probably haven't even been using it as much as other people in this house that have a prescribed inhaler. And I have not contracted pneumonia or caught it from them. I've been immersed in the same environment, driving the same car as the person that has severe pneumonia, and I continually am exposed to the environment, and I still have yet to get it. And the only other person that hasn't gotten it either, but had it earlier this year, was Eustace. He had it as well. Funny enough, when my brother started to actually develop early symptoms of the pneumonia, I gave him a citron quartz like I'm wearing now, which is supposed to be one of the actual gemstones that causes some sort of interference with your etheric or your aura energy that the ethers infiltrate. Because in ancient Babylonian texts and folklore, they say that pneumonia and those kinds of instantaneous, like under the weather kind of deadly diseases, derive from them attacking you, called the spitting venom of phantoms. Yeah. So, that being said, anyway, in recent times, because there was a unjustified murder murder I guess kind of just reemphasizes that, a murder of a citizen, a local person in the Wenatchee area, I happened to use the app again. Not inside my house, because I was always apprehensive about that. Not inside my house, but somewhere else. And one thing I'm starting to understand. So they obviously understand light, but I think that's because there's radiant kind of waves coming off of it most of the time. So that's how they would be able to perceive light. They can also perceive when I'm singing because apparently it bothers them. So when there's vibrato going on and when there's vibrations in general, it causes dysphoria and it overwhelms them. Which would make sense yet again, tying back to the religious customs, why bells were on the top of churches. You were supposed to go to church every Sunday, not to be a good Christian or not to be a good, servant of God. It was because stones, a lot of stones, not just the citron quartz, but different stones absorb negative energy, including the electromagnetic smog energy that is the essence of the ethers themselves, the blue and the gray. So there are some stones which a lot of the Orthodox churches are made of stone. That's the one thing I always loved about them. They're made of stone. The fucking windows are made of stained glass. The color yellow, red, and green, depending on the culture you get it from, I guess, are all colors that are supposed to steer clear or steer away ether energy or shadow people or negative forces. Ethers from, if you were going to translate it from Babylonian texts, are devils and demons, or Lilith's spiritual creatures. The things that were created on the 6th day of creation. Those things. in general. And even if a loved one dies and they happen to be consciously here and they make contact with you, it's not even that they're intending malicious harm, but just because of the overall sadness that they feel, just being trapped in what they are for whatever reason, however they intellectually justify that, their residual like sorrow of either being unable to engage with you, unable to do what they used to do, feeling some sort of regret for not doing the things they should have done in life, now they can't. That projected negativity is projected onto people, and that's where depression and manic depression and feeling like you want to kill yourself and shit, that's where that stuff stems from. So that would explain why I've also my entire life had issues with electronic items, had weird shit like maim me out of nowhere, because Uranus as well as Saturn has to do with ethers, and I have that square my Mars in my house of self. So when random freak accidents would happen and I would like maim myself, it would essentially be them trying to infiltrate. Basically what they did is they would get into my head, make me anxious, and my anxious erratic behavior myself would actually basically influence me to start acting manic, and then I would maim myself. So yes, it would be me that would essentially cause the maiming of the self, but it was their influence to intentionally antagonize my anxieties that did that first and foremost, because they're well aware of how that shit works. So again, it's the churches, the Orthodox churches, like you even see the Catholic priests, they swing that thing that has smoke coming out of it. Those are incense that keep away the actual ethers. The reason why Orthodox Catholics actually have sermons on Saturday morning, early morning, is because that is the dawn of Saturn Day. Saturn Day is the 6th day of creation, the day the ethers were created. Therefore, that would be the day that they would primarily be their most strongest. And in fact, as of today, right now, it is Saturn Day, Saturday. And after I was actually explaining this to my friend Jackie yesterday, after I went to go grab my anise mead that's actually tastes amazing and it works, I just sidetracked with that, by the way. Anise is also used not only for medicinal purposes, but it is the strongest, most potent herb for exercising things. So if you're going to be doing any claim your space or cleansing yourself, or you feel like you're being influenced by ether beings or whatever, taking a shot of that and then basically saying get the fuck out, however eloquently or not so much you want to say that, would be essentially the equating to an exorcism, a self-exorcism. And no better to do an exorcism than for you, because somebody else actually trying to like actually navigate an exorcism in your name is not you showing actual intent for it to get the fuck out. That you got to do things yourself, right? So anyway, going to church every Sunday, even if you had spirit attachment with you, not knowing the things that I've learned, not understanding how to get rid of them, how to evade them, how to basically take them on, because anything that starts to insinuate oppressing my space, or trying to come off and insinuate that there's some sort of threat to me, and they get to delegate my fucking life choices, I take that as a personal threat, and I take it to the end until I find every single fucking method in order to actually keep them off of me. So I noticed that after I did that EMF reading, or that EVP session the other day, that I started to notice that my cat Gizzy was starting to see things up on the ceiling again. I also noticed that there was, it hasn't been as intense as it was before, but the behavior and the people in this house downstairs started to kind of escalate again than it has since I stopped using that actual app. So the second I turn it on, it's like a gateway. I was explaining this to my friend Luna. It's a gateway. So kind of imagine it like this. Zombie apocalypse, since everybody's well aware of pop culture bullshit. Zombie apocalypse. It's pretty much like doomsday. Everybody outside of your, secured structure that you've somehow, fallout kind of status or whatever fixed up is a zombie and not trustworthy. For some reason, one of your actual parts of your structure has had a breach. They've gotten like some wood off that you've nailed on a window or something like that, and one of them has gotten in. You've noticed that there's this breach. Okay, so you go and fix the breach and try to assess the damage as much as possible, right? But then say that you didn't realize how many of them got in, and or that there's some in there that you didn't even see that are now in your structure. You have to physically go and remove them and or destroy the things that are in your structure for your structure to be secure again. Every time you turn that app on, at least this is what I gather from my continuous experiences with it and me observing what kind of transpires thereafter from using it, is that every time that app is turned on by anybody, it's like opening up that window and taking off the boards for that fucking structure. So it doesn't matter if it was your house, your Uncle Jim's house, and your Uncle Jim just isn't there right now. When your Uncle Jim fucking comes home, he's going to notice that there's fucking zombies or there's parts all over his house. It doesn't matter that Uncle Jim didn't turn the fucking app on. It doesn't matter that Uncle Jim didn't let him in. It's the fact that that thing is now in the house because somebody let one of the structures actually have a breach. So every time somebody turns that app on, it's a breach. The thing can follow you, or it can follow you and then attach to something else, or it can just be lingering in general. Which would also explain why some of the ethers have explained to me that there's things hanging off the bottom of my car when me and Stacy or me and Eustace have used that app in the car. Meaning that every time we turn it on, especially when we were going through the forest, the little gremlins are just clinging onto the bottom of the car as if they're actually physical manifestations and they came along for the ride with us. And when we happen to come home, that's when we had a huge significant increase in activity because we probably brought a whole forest of fucking gremlins with us. So, the app was turned on yet again the other day. My intention was to get information about Matt. I didn't really get that much. I turned it on once while I was at the park, and then I also turned it on yet again when I was taking Eustace to work one morning right near the Albertsons area. I got some little bits of information, but even still, my friend Luna says, well, they do tell you some interesting information. I'm like, yes, and it's like a wiretapping. If you've seen that movie Taken, and other movies that I probably just can't remember because I don't watch those kind of fucking movies, where the actual investigation team or the police task force is trying to keep somebody on the phone for as long as they fucking can until they can tap the phone line and figure out the actual exact location of where that phone is being transferred from. Since they can use that no matter what, I think it's fascinating that this app even works with no service. That basically, the longer that they keep you on it, the more that they can get into the exact location, I would say, and the more that they're stronger in coming through. I think that there has something to do with me either letting a bunch more of them in, and or something to do with them being stronger or being more exact the longer you keep it on. So yes, they will sit there and fucking tell me some interesting, fascinating things. There are some days when they actually are telling me exactly what I want to hear. And they realize too, with me at least, the more that they tell me exactly what I want to fucking hear, the longer I keep the fucking app on. The longer I keep the fucking app on, the more of them can infiltrate my area. So because there's no Orthodox churches around anymore, because a lot of them are being destroyed or being modernized.
Thanks, Marxists.
Right. The ones that just look like fucking houses or like corner stores that say Church of Christ on it. It has nothing to do with it. The only one that I've seen that's like totally legit are three of them in Wenatchee. There's one on Mission right before Spokane Street that I don't even think they fucking use anymore. There's another one that's actually on Miller and Washington Street that I've seen, and it has the stone building and it has the stained glass windows. So that's one of the only ones left. And then there's another one, I can't remember exactly, I think it's towards like Methow Street in Wenatchee, where it's the old legit structure. The reason why those exist, the stones keep them from infiltrating the structure. The stained glass windows, just like I put a hexagram actually on my windows, that was one of the first things I did when I was trying to keep them out, which that was successful. Because smudging doesn't keep them out totally, that's why you're supposed to do it every fucking Sunday or Saturday morning, depending on what spectrum of religious practice you're deriving from. The most effective time would be likely on Saturday morning. When I put a hexagram up on the window in the bathroom, I actually had success with that. And I think it's interesting too that in these last couple days after I used that app, not only has the attitude of the house been different, and even when my Aries friend came over, my fan, which every living and dead person probably knows because I bitch about it so much, that I need fans all the time. It was fucking with my fan in the other room because that's where the activity has been the most intense. Because yes, first and foremost, they do feed off of the energy of man. So it's not all them that actually contributes to this. They feed off of it like vultures. They're like fucking vermin. But until they actually pick up on vibrations of negativity, either feeling resentment, anger, hostility, sadness, that's their cue. It's like they have a radar for that, because that's the essence of what they are, and they gravitate towards people like that. And or they can just do their more modern kind of technology and jump right into people's electronic devices, which would also reinforce why they keep insinuating that they can go through the phonograph or the actual monitor and stuff, and why I even proved with that one audio clip that chick Heather from Tennessee still doesn't realize that I have that, and I was able to successfully get it up. That I had my ex and my friend Matt Jordan upload it to SoundCloud of the ethers actually saying that they're going to go through the phonograph and through the monitor, and then they go through that and they start saying random words that are directly associated with what she physically looks like and some physical health issues that she has. And just as they were initially trying to get Eustace to distract me by kind of influencing him to then basically come and be in interference with me directly, because it wasn't working with them just trying to distract me themselves. Her husband on that end, because she was no longer, basically they needed to distract her, and telling her about herself did not distract her from her continuing to talk to me. And so they actually went and got her husband, who I find fascinating, is also another air sign, and because the air signs are the mental people, which Mercury is how they infiltrate into your mind in general. That's how they are able to influence your actions. So air signs in general, as well as mutable, are going to be the most susceptible to things like this. So what the ethers were originally getting at is that I need to just continue to claim my space. They were referencing the ancient superstitious kind of practices that derive from the most ancient of religions, or the oldest of religious customs, which is to purify the space. And if you can't purify your space all the time, because wreaths are made of ferns, right? Wreaths go on your actual door during the times of year when there isn't as much daylight to keep the ethers at bay. So that actually keeps them from coming into your home at night. That has a direct symbolic correlation with God or whatever, or basically the omens, or the what are those called?
Which ones? What?
When they came to get your firstborn, and the stupid locusts and shit.
Oh yeah, the 7 plagues.
The plagues. When the plagues come and get you, because also plague has a lot to do with illness too. The plagues, when they would come to your doorstep and take your firstborn,
The original Passover. Mark your house with lamb's blood.
Right, so it's marking your front door to keep the ethers at bay, because the plagues, the way that they would be enforced is through ether energy, regardless if God actually, instilled that or not. So that's where the whole putting your wreaths on your front door came from. And fascinatingly enough, another hexagram that many people may not be aware of, a spider web, and a spider itself translates the exact same in some cultures as a dream catcher, or that sort of thing. So the dream catcher is supposed to help you steer away from nightmares. Yes, but what causes the nightmares? The ethers cause the nightmares. So sometimes if you're having some sort of prophetic, vision of something in the future, it could be looking nightmarish, but primarily if you're being traumatized in your dreams, it's the ethers getting to you. Because they rule and they dwell in the Neptunian ether world, the other spiritual world, and that's where they can get you, because Neptune's associated with sleep. And also, too, they can completely infiltrate your mind. And I am fully convinced, and I'm still researching this, so I don't have anything to back this up as of yet, except for my intuitive kind of, gut feeling about this. I'm fully confident myself that the Russian sleep experiment, the things that happen to those people over time with them being sleep deprived, is directly associated with ethers. Directly associated with ethers. So it's important to cleanse your house regularly. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of those churches anymore. So when everybody says you're a bad Christian for not going to church every Sunday, has nothing to do with going to churches. If vibrato that could be replicated by bells as well as choirs or singing keeps ethers confused or at bay, that would make sense why why the church will ring the bells before church service begins. Not to signify that people need to come to church, because they know when church begins, but it's to actually keep any of the ethers at bay that may be lingering along the outskirts of the church itself, so they can't attach to anybody and attack anybody, especially innocent people. So the church bells are the first warning, first and foremost, with that. And then I thought about it also. Wind chimes. They're very, very popular with a lot of Eastern cultures. that is the closest thing I could find in recent times to like a giant obnoxious bell. And it would make sense why they're put on the porches outside. Yes, they're for wind, but also, yet again, if you haven't noticed before, drafts and like temperature differences do happen with paranormal phenomenon. So naturally, they can actually cause things to move. I've even reinforced this and proved this with all my photos that I have, where they make my shutter completely fuck up and it's blurry. For them to be able to do that, they have to actually be causing some sort of gust or something, even if it's minimal, that I can't sense. If my camera can pick that up, and they can essentially cause things to move, which that's the whole point of, you know, really intense aggressive paranormal phenomenon, right? Then that would make sense there as well. So that there in itself, every time somebody uses one of these ghost apps, the fact that everybody's getting on this kick of why paranormal like hunting and ghost hunting is becoming so fucking huge. First off, they're empowered by anybody who has an actual modern kind of not analog device of any kind, because there's actual silicon chips inside every single electronic device, including smart TVs, etc., that have actual quartz in them.
These radio transistors rely on quartz transistors, actually. They rely on quartz crystals to even function properly.
Right. This kind of thing, just clear quartz, amplifies energy of any kind. Right? Then if we want to get technical, this is amethyst quartz. This amplifies spiritual energy of any kind. So this is even better. If they actually started putting amethyst quartz in it, they would fucking... yeah, they'd be able to annihilate everybody. Because fire purifies things and gets rid of negative cold energy, because again I said that they're associated with grays and blues. The opposite of that, which would be the analogous colors, would be the warm colors, fire colors. So it's the citron quartz that quartz itself still purifies my energy, and because I'm a life and I'm a warm-blooded person, fire doesn't affect my athletic or my aura kind of energy, but it fucks with them to not be able to come near me. Right. So it's the same thing as turning the lights on them. So I've noticed that there's been a significant increase in activity up here, and there being continuous issues with my computers here. And then funny enough, I came home, I opened up the window in the bathroom because I happened to take a shower earlier, and then I thought, like, well, shit, I might as well just sing, because singing keeps them at bay. I even have audio recording of them admitting that it bothers them that I sing, that it's overwhelming them. So that's the other thing that I like to throw into this. Not only am I correlating this with ancient traditions and what they claim is why they do these things. It's not even that I've directly read that from a source. It's me understanding what the religious customs are and kind of just wondering, why the fuck do people do that? And then realizing that I'm kind of doing the same things. I'm smudging the house. What are those things that the priests are swaying everywhere? And it's like, why? And I used to be annoyed when I used to go to church with my friend Danny. I'm like, why the fuck is there music going on when we first enter the building? And then why the fuck do we have to sing a hymn as soon as we all congregate into the freaking room? And then we get to talk a bit more, and then they sing another one while we're doing the sacrament thing, which essentially the sacrament thing would be taking a little bit of water and bread, and the Mormon thing being the more sober kind. What that translates to is that if you actually had some of my anise mead, which, where did you put that at?
It's back in the cupboard. You need to get it?
Yeah, I wanted to show it and take a drink of it.
Okay.
If you're able to actually use...
Hold this spot. Hold on to this spot.
Yeah.
Also, that's Gizzy, and that picture looks funny.
Okay. If you actually use some of the holy herbs, as it were, in a deduction, or soaking them in there, or infusing them with liquor, which would be why potpourri, I always used to go like, why the hell do people have potpourri like that? And it probably makes sense because I actually have jars around here of herbs that I put in there, and then I basically did a tincture fermentation with it. I can't figure out how to get the fucking herbs out of it. So I just let them dry in there, and they're stuck in the bottom. I'm like, look, I have my own ghetto potpourri. But anyway, so the actual sacrament, or, you know, taking of some sort of wine in general, I think it's been dumbed down over time. And it's actually supposed to be like this exorcism mixture, just like I've had in the past. I'm going to get a spoon boots and look out. So oddly enough, not only does this have all kinds of medicinal cures as well, because the Babylonians yet again said that all illness derives from ethers. So not only does this actually cure medicinal, have medicinal properties to cure things, but it also simultaneously works as an exorcism drink. And oh, this is so good. I'm going to be selling this.
It might as well be a redundant statement.
Right. I'm going to be selling this at Barford, by the way. This is good.
Your mom liked it too.
Everybody should love this.
I loved it.
It's because watch the you need to understand the origin of where you get all your information. The closer you go back to source, the more effective your products, the more effective your rituals, the more effective your theology is going to be. The fact that I'm using one of the oldest references of a cult, anything, some of the stuff by the Babylonians, is reason enough as to why a lot of my shit is effective. It's also why a lot of my astrological practice and theories are effective as well, because I derive it from Plato and Neoplatism and Aristotle's fifth essence himself. I go back right to the source, because you know what I found fascinating? When you go to like an astrology convention like Norwalk I go to, you can see hundreds of fucking books all over the goddamn shop that they have there, right? I can skim through that. Half of the whole fucking room is just regurgitated like remnants of just like a fragment of a sentence of a concept from Aristotle or Plato.
What's worse, you start playing the telephone game, and it gets more and more diluted as time goes on.
Well, the problem is that you need to understand the entire theology from start to finish with Aristotle and Plato in order to actually become effective and use this as a occult science, more or less, as opposed to an occult art or a joke, if you ask me honestly, a joke. And even if you were to buy every single one of those books, the chances are of you actually being able to integrate the way that it's been narrated with each book and make sense that it all correlates in with one, if they even are able to do that, because typically the people that would write those books, besides maybe Chris Brennan, who intentionally takes little tidbits of things and only tells you that and doesn't actually tell you where he gets his sources and his information from, because then people would be able to replicate what he does. And there again, I think that just anybody who does anything of the sort like that just reinforces that they don't feel confident in their own abilities, and or they realize that anybody can do what they're doing, and meaning that just makes me go back to ranting to people that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, so go find what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're an astrologer pretending to be an astrologer and you don't know what and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you of all people should at least be able to figure out what you should be doing, and you should be working on that. If you want to be a hobbyist astrologer, that's one thing, but don't try to force yourself to be something you're not.
Jewel.
Yeah. And Alyssa, and yeah.
Essentially, there's a reason we have traditions. We don't just do these things for the hell of it. We don't just follow traditions and routines because we feel like it. They serve a function and a purpose. These New Age methodologies, these New Age beliefs are poisonous. It's misdirection. It's making people think they're enlightened when they're actually further from the truth than anybody else.
Me and Boo are actually talking about something in the car I found fascinating. We're in the age of Pisces, right? So that's a 2,000 year kind of, rounded, give or take, time span. So the way that the pendulum swings, we're supposed to go one direction and it's supposed to come back. So since we're close, quote unquote, to the end of the age of Pisces, we have to, the whole essence of Pisces in general, Neptune and Pisces, the collective being completely immersed, like humans in general, all their contributions and anything like that in Neptune and Pisces would be them feeling detached from their human history, them feeling detached from traditions, detached from everything. So you use the polarity kind of basically formula like they use with medical astrology. That's one thing that I have actually basically been exercising and practicing with everything. That the medical as well as everything else is all one, as above so below. So not just using it for medical diagnosis, but in general. So what would be the polarity? So since Neptune and Pisces is the age that we're in, disconnect with everything would be what would be transpiring in general. So disconnect with our institutions, disconnect with tradition, disconnect with the people in general. That would be also emphasized on the end of this spectrum, with us all being on the internet and being disconnected with our environment and our communities. So the symptoms of us actually experiencing this disconnect euphoria that would happen because of Neptune and Pisces age would be anything Virgo related. So being overemphasizing and being calculative or discriminative or detailed, fixed on details, and deciding that this shouldn't be allowed, this should be allowed. Or re-emphasizing on physical, tangible evidence or validation, feeling that if there's not actual physical 1, 2, 3 to delegate that this is actually happening, then this is not actually real. And that is the emphasis of the fight between religion and science for the past 500, 600, up to even 1,000 years. So all of the basically progression, as people would call it, towards the modern age, getting away from all the ancient cultures that knew what they were talking about, and us being so dumbfounded and fascinated with like Egyptian stuff and all that, and why'd they do this and why'd they do that, and how'd they create these structures without any of this kind of modern technology? It would be because they know a lot more about shit than apparently we do. And we continue to perpetuate this pseudo-intellectualism that, despite the fact that we have access to all these transcripts, we have the British Museum that has PDFs that they release. There's all these different things, books. We have basically, despite the fact that Google's completely corrupt at this point, and Pluto and Capricorn is intentionally warping information because people are dependent on it, we have the capacity to have all the information we could ever want at our fingertips, and yet we're all as stupid as fuck because we seem to think that because we have access to the information there, and that it's so easily obtainable, and that we have more just in general resources at our fingertips in order to resolve things, that we don't actually have to strain ourselves or challenge ourselves to actually figure things out. And therein lies the issue itself. And so that in itself right there just reinforces why I continue to go back to all the ancient associations. If it wasn't for the fact that I look back to the ancient associations and their knowledge and reading back their transcripts and how they resolve things and what they think things are, or what their hypothesis, theories, or speculations of the actual issues and events or whatever conflicts they had to deal with are evident, and how they actually resolved them. I didn't actually believe what they thought, first and foremost, because I was being open-minded. But I happened to notice that they said, I made that correlation. I've made plenty of YouTube videos on it before I even believed in this shit. That they make some correlation between paranormal entities or ethers or demonic spirits and illness. So I actually, and I just went and looked all the different kinds of properties for the herbs up, and it did actually correlate that those things heal pneumonia or cure this or help treat this or empower the immune system to do this and that. So I actually just started making tinctures and medicines and concoctions that are fermented out of those just to treat those. But as a matter of fact, at the same time, I'm actually making exorcism concoctions as well, and I'm actually keeping ethers from attacking people on top of actually curing them. So with or without us actually validating the Babylonians or humoring what they say, somehow coincidentally the same things that I use to cure and boost people's immune systems are actually the same thing as like me doing Christ compels you and throwing some fucking garlic shit towards the ethers. Which goes back to referencing all the horror movies and the fictitious shit. What is the one thing that vampires can't stand? A whole garland of garlic around your neck. Why? So yet again, all the things that are fictitious or fiction-based horror, anything that is supposed to be scary or demonic or monstrous, if it's not regurgitated modern-day fucking special effects shit that's doesn't even touch the story, which goes back and forth to what I was saying about astrologers referencing just fragments of fucking shit they don't understand, and it goes way beyond just astrologers. Obviously, it goes to religious factions as well. I'm gonna end this because I'm gonna fucking run out of breath, even though I can breathe a little better, hence why I'm talking a lot faster. But yeah, my spice mix has an array of different benefits and uses. I'll actually write down, go all Virgo about it, since Mercury's still in Virgo right now, which, by the way, Mercury will be going retrograde in 7 days from now, FYI. So anyway, yeah, I'll actually write down a list that I can reference and tell you all the benefits of this, and I will be selling this at the Okanagan, Tonasket, Central Washington Barter Fair this year, and I will continue in the future to be making this exact recipe mixture here into tinctures as well. So,
because quite frankly, it's delicious.
Not just that, but I'm in Washington State, and if you kind of look on the news or whatever, or if you happen to be in the fucking state or neighboring states going towards the Central American area, you're noticing that there's a smog outside because all of Canada's burning to the ground, right where the last eclipse left off. So the first of the fucking month, of the month where the eclipse actually is transpiring, by the way, is actually the day that the fire smoke started to completely consume the entire fucking continental United States. And funny enough, if you actually go on my Facebook and look, I actually uploaded an image of where I simultaneously on different posts found the eclipse like actual directional line, which I was well aware of, and then also the hardest hit areas for all the smoke. Did you notice something fascinating? The fucking direction for the smoke and the eclipse line is the same. Fascinating. Just reinforces yet again all those idiots out there that try to say, well, the eclipse starts on the 21st, so that would mean that exactly at the 21st, on this exact time, at 10 a.m. in the morning, that's when the eclipse energy will begin to manifest. Yeah, don't you fucking wish that would happen? Just like people who find out that they're terminally ill and they're dying, that they think that they're just going to die the next day any moment. Oh no, it's a very elongated fucking process that you just draw out and die a horrible, painful death. Right. Just like the ethers themselves say, why are you still here? Are you guys still lingering here? What's going on? And they say they're dissolving. It's a process. Just like evolution is a process. Just like the digression of your fucking mentality is a process. It continues to get worse all the time. I'm gonna go take a time out because I feel like maybe I don't know. I don't know if this was therapeutic or if I just got myself even more amped up. Either way, break time, smudge time, something like that, right? Boo, bye, boo. Bye, boo, bye.
Fled from a land at war. Oh, hello, is there someone there who cares for God-forsaken souls and God-forsaken man? Is there someone there who cares?